Konnichiwa, this is Lori, your samurai strategist. And for you that don't know me, um, welcome, and I'll give you just a brief introduction about myself. And did you like the music? Which Anel and I just did that this morning for you. So this is about how traveling to Japan enhances your understanding of samurai culture, and Kodo Bushido, and actually about understanding the culture will help you understand the Kodo Bushido and the samurai culture. So we'll start with the first slide. The first slide is about me. Yes, I am a farmer's daughter, and hopefully I didn't like it. Still don't like it. I enjoy of course, the produce and everything that goes along with it. But as far as the work goes, I did not like it. I didn't like being wet. I didn't like being cold and muddy, and it just was not my life. But I learned so much in my background, and a lot of it was about hard work, determination, never giving up. You finish your task to the very end. That's gambaru. And ikigai is knowing your place in life. And I knew very young that was not what I was meant to do. And in the Kodo Bushido, I learned a lot about courage, integrity, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty. So I'll be speaking about that during this presentation. But first, I wanted to give you just a brief background of me. I'm a baby boomer, grew up during the 60s, and it was not a good time to be Japanese because I was teased and bullied and made fun of, hair pulling, and even punched in the stomach because I was Japanese, and I couldn't change that. So I pretty much kind of wanted to put that aside and blend in with the rest of the people that had brown or blonde hair and blue eyes, but I couldn't, because that's not who I was. It's not who I am. And I'm really thankful for who I am now. And I'm thankful for the way God made me. He didn't make me to be Caucasian. He made me to be Asian. So I love my background now, but it was a pretty painful growing up. But then as I grew up, I started learning about it and took Japanese in college. And so I thought, I want to learn what my parents were saying behind my back, or actually they'd say it in front of us, but we could only understand a few words, like okane means money, takai means expensive, baka means there's something missing up there. So I learned a few words, but nothing like what I would learn later in college. And I still continue to take classes. I take classes online now. We're done for the summer. We'll start back up in the fall. So I grew up in, high achiever, cheerleader, and then went to college. And after that, I went to the Tacoma Art Museum as my first experience in the world in which I was an art major. And my mentor told me, she goes, Lori, you're more Asian and Japanese than you realize. I think you ought to go to Japan. And so my husband and I did. We were newlyweds, and we went to Japan and stayed about 5 weeks, and it was wonderful. And I started appreciating and learning about my background. In fact, that picture right there came from one of our friends who took a family photo to Japan, and they took it apart and they made they're dinner-sized plates. Came with 2 matchbooks, but we don't have those anymore. And my mom thought, oh, that'd be a great thing to bring to the United States. She was always thinking about ideas and wanting to buy McDonald's. And she wanted to buy a row of houses when Seattle was down. She says, oh, they won't be that way forever. So I got that kind of that gunk, the guts and the visionary type thing from my mom. So I have a lot to thank her for that. She's not here any longer, but that's my mom. And so when we went to Japan, next slide, we actually met my father's side of the family, and they were very gracious, and I saw so many similarities, and I thought, oh, I'm more, my family, I just heard their laughter and their sense of humor and their jovial disposition, and I saw so many familiar traits from my father's side. And we went to this historical procession in Kyoto. And if you ever go to Kyoto during October, I highly recommend this. It's called the Jidai Matsuri. And it has over 2,000 people dressed in period attire. And one of them was this woman, Tomoe goes in, and I thought, wow, look at her. And she had a little bit different sword. You can see that it's the long naginata. And Tomoe lived from 1157 to 1247, and she was a force to be reckoned with. They sent her out on the front lines, and she could literally take on hundreds of men by herself and come out alive. So she was she was legendary. So think about legendary. What is going to happen to you after you pass away? Well, people still talk about her, and they have, if you watch anime, you might see her, or manga. She's the female warrior that you see with the long sword, stylized, of course, but you'll recognize her if you watch manga or anime. So the other thing we did was we met our Japanese relatives of our father's side of the family, and they gave us this crest, which is a family crest, and I didn't realize the significance of it until later in life. But if you see up at the top, there are three swords. The first one's at very, very top, and the other ones beside them look like hearts, but they're actually leaves from the katabami plant. And so I'll tell you a little bit more later about what I learned about that and how significant it was. So and then life happened, raising a family. But then in 2005, 2007, I was rear-ended twice, one in 05 and 107. And the one in 07 left me, I was diagnosed with traumatic brain injury, reading at a 7th grade level, had chronic pain and cognitive deficits. And I just didn't know if I was going to improve, because who wants to be reading at a 7th grade level, right? I mean, if you're in the 7th grade, that's okay. But if you're a college person, then that's not okay. So I fought my way back, and I thought, if I can write a book, I will overcome traumatic brain injury. So that's what I did. I worked hard, tirelessly, vision therapy, speech pathology, you name it, physiatrist, chiropractor, physical therapy, neurologist, neuropsych, you name it. I just did that until I got well. But then the fruit of that is I did write the book, and I'm a survivor of traumatic brain injury. And here's the book. This is actually the new edition of my book, and it's called Let the Samurai Be Your Guide. So it's I've been told it's a great book, but it's about the code of Bushido and what the samurai live by. Many people know about the samurai and all of their battles, up and down all the nations or islands of Japan. They were fighting battles, and but there was a peaceful period where a lot of the cultural things started thriving when they weren't in battle so much. So the book is now available on Amazon. It's called Let the Samurai Be Your Guide. So Let the Samurai Be Your Guide. And that was Tuttle's title. Kind of rhymes, not really, but, and I'm so happy and thankful that I did have this experience to be published by an international publisher. And that got me into Barnes and Noble, because they wouldn't look at me when I came to them. They say, oh, well, we don't do self-published books, but now they do have my book. So it's on Amazon, and it's also in fine bookstores, Kinokuniya, all that. So here you have the guide of the 7 codes of Bushido. Bushi is warrior, do is the way. So Bushido is the way of the warrior. The samurai were the warriors, and samurai comes from the Japanese verb samaru, which means to serve. So the original occupation of the samurai was to be a servant and to protect their lord, their master, their village, and they usually came from nobility. So this is a very interesting thing. And only about 10% of the population in Japan were samurais. And so we will send that to you. Please DM us and we will send it to you. Or if we send out the recording, you will get it. So here, I was just shared with you about the samurai wisdom, code of Bushido, and down below you'll see courage, integrity, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty. And those principles, they did not compromise, and that's what made them great. My opinion, made them great warriors. So next one. So now we're going to talk about why Japan is great and why you need to go. Just put it on your bucket list. If you can't go this year, just make it sometime. But I would tell you that the best time to go is in the spring and the fall. And we're going to go this winter because we're taking our two oldest grandson and grandson, granddaughter to Japan because they've wanted to go, and we thought this is a great time. Any younger, I don't know that they'd appreciate it. But I was at the, I believe it was yes, it was Takashimaya, and this is beautiful sushi. But look at the price. You will like $12.96 for this. So that would be about $10 for that whole little box of sushi. And over here you have, there's shrimp, and then there's some that is covered with, I don't know what kind of leaf that is. I don't want to guess, but here is probably what they called inari sushi, and that's tofu pockets. And inari comes from Fushimi Inari Taisha Shrine. And that part of their, I don't know if you call it an item of food that came from there were those tofu pockets, because that was for money. That was their little money bags. But in America, we call them little footballs, but they're very small, but they're delicious. I remember my grandmother making it, and she was 6 when I was 6 when she died, and I just remembered her so much. And I thought, oh, I want to make sushi like grandma. But it took me thousands to get it down. I would just keep practicing and practicing. And I learned from people in Japan that one of the secret ingredients of Japanese food is the love and care. So instead of just throwing things together, like maybe being a cook at McDonald's, they put care into everything they do. And it doesn't matter if you're a sushi chef or you do it for 7-Eleven, which, don't laugh, 7-Eleven has delicious food. It's really good, and it's very reasonable. You could probably have a lunch for $6 and maybe a dinner for 10, or in even some restaurants, you can have a nice dinner. When we went for $10, the dollar's starting to go down, but it's been pretty high for quite a while. And over here in the bottom left corner, you'll see it says $1.95. And what that is it's natto. Natto is the fermented bean that comes out, and it's stringy, and people don't like it. But I never liked it until someone says you have to eat it with this mustard and vinegar. So I did, and I love it now with hot rice. Over to that left, it's $1.84 for thing of cucumber. So they do have some that are vegetarian options. Up here in the top left corner, I hope I'm saying that right, it's for 540 yen. So that's about $3 to $4. And that looks like to be sashimi. And over here in the middle are lots of vegetarian options. And over to the right, you have more of like the inari sushi, and then the vegetable for the wrap. And up above is shrimp and sashimi, and down below the shrimp sashimi. And I don't know what this is, but this is a different type of roll. But anyway, what I wanted to share with you is about sushi and how that is part of the culture. And here was the last hotel I went to, and those two little ladies were so sweet. They just, you come into there and they have a whole sign, and there were 7, there weren't 6, there were 7 different toppings you could have. And so when you first arrived, they were just ready at attention to fix your favorite onigiri. That's what they call it. And they just put so much love into it. And they knew after a couple times, they knew right what I wanted. They knew that I wanted not one piece of seaweed. I asked for a couple extra, because your hands, if you pick it up with your hands, they can get a little sticky. And seaweed is very good for you. And especially for women, I was told by my naturopath. So I gave it, because we became friends, I gave them a little box of applets and cutlets, and they gave me a hug, which is, you don't do that in Japan. People don't hug each other. They're not demonstrative like we are in the United States. So that was quite a compliment that they gave me that. And they were just everything, they would just go around and make sure that all of the ingredients were fresh, and everything was just pristine and filled up. You don't fill things in Japan. You don't pile things. You just have just like a smaller amount, and that's what you would do on your plates. So I was I love being there, and you can see that was their kitchen. Over in the back is their rice cookers. So that is the ingredient. So if you want to know one of the ingredients, they don't say that, but you'll learn that because they care, and the women do that for their husbands and children going to school. They make the little obentos, and that's like a portable little lunch. They pack it with love, and they make all kinds of, for the younger children, they do it more with like animals and maybe characters, and it's adorable what they do. And for adults, it's more the food with the rice and the pickles and the main protein, whether it be tofu or fish. That's what it is. Okay, this is King Kakuji, and if you look behind, I'm there. No, that's in Kyoto. It's one of the most iconic temples in Japan, and it really is gold, and it's beautiful. And I didn't know, when the first time I went, I didn't know that was in 19. I said, well, I've seen it, and I didn't know if I really wanted to go, but it is beautiful. It is really stunning. And what I loved about it is you couldn't take a bad picture. You could walk around and get pictures of it, but you didn't get there was not a bad view. There was a king kakuji. King is gold and gin is silver. And so there was a king kakuji, which is gold, literally gold. You can't walk inside, but you can walk around it. And then the gin kakuji is supposed to be the silver temple, but it's not silver. And when I was in Japan by myself, I actually went to that temple. It's beautiful. It's a little bit more rustic, and there's a cone that is made out of just those small rocks. And they said they change that every year. Every year they change that. But the king kakuji is just to show the splendor and how much they really revere the royalty and the governing, the daimyo, the shogun, and now the prime minister. So we'll go to the next slide. This is one of our first steps, and it's a very good place to go. If you go, they have one in Kyoto and one in Tokyo. So you go there and you learn about the samurai history. You see in the far right, there's a man dressed like a ninja. And they also told us that originally the ninja were in Navy. So you'll learn all about the Samurai Museum. And it's very affordable. You go in groups of about 30. You go through their history part, and you get to see a lot of armor and different the people that are dressed up with the armor. No, well, not people. They have them on display, but it's very nice examples. And they have ask questions, and you have to go around and find the answers to it before you start the tour. But I was busy taking pictures because I really like that. I love taking pictures in Japan. So you can see there, I'm in the middle. And of course I chose to be black. I like black, as you can tell. And that's standing by a gentleman, well, not really a gentleman, but shall we call him a dummy that was there. And then the next picture over to the left, there are two friends of mine that also went on the tour, and they're in red. And we have, there's a large, like probably a 5-panel screen, and then a soldier in back of them, a warrior, and then a poster. So that is that one. That's a Samurai Ninja Museum. And when we were in, I want to share this with you, Miyama, once per year, one time per year, the Shinto religion has a planting ceremony. And so you can see the women dressed up like they used to plant rice, and that they would do that in the water, and they would plant rice. And so that's I like watching it, but I don't think I'd like doing it. I when I used to work in the fields, I would be wet, but not up to my knees. So that is Miyama. It's a very well preserved old village in Japan. And it's about hour and a half, 2 hours from Kyoto. And I just really wanted to go there. And I specifically asked with our tour, we had 3 days that we could go out. And I said, could you take us? Could we go to Miyama? And they go, well, I don't know. And they said they might be booked. And I said, well, could you try anyway? Because I would really like the people on the tour to experience Miyama, especially when Kyoto can be very crowded during the week, on the weekends, I'm sorry. So that's what we did. And we learned so many things about their rice planting and how they do it. And these are women that are dressed up to do the ceremony. And it was interesting. It was very rainy, very windy, but people, it only happened once a year. And I was so happy and thankful because I had read about it. And then when I asked that we do it on that day, it was the only Sunday that when we were in Japan, and they said, okay, we'll do it. And it happened to be the day that they had that ceremony, or the festival, they call it. And it was really fortuitous because how I didn't even have to plan it. I just had, that was in my mind, and I thought, oh, that would be great. I don't know if we could ever be there. First Sunday of the first week in May. And I thought, oh, well, and I just kind of put that aside. But then when we got there and we saw that, I go, oh, now I remember they talked about this. I didn't know if I could make it, but we did. And they were very thankful. And these are the people that joined us on the tour. We had a great time. And if you're interested in going to Japan, I take people just once a year. We have a sign-up sheet for that. We already have people that are interested in going there. Oh, back one. What I wanted to talk a little bit about, can you go back one slide, is Uji. And this one here is Uji. And there you had your, Uji is the green tea capital of Japan. And when you think of tea fields, you think of the terrace and the beautiful green fields, but that's not what it is. They said in Uji, they only choose the top by hand, they pick the top 5 leaves. And the rest of it goes to other types of tea, the lower grades. So that is why green tea is so expensive and it's so good. And in this, we had the tea ceremony that we could partake in, but we had our choice. We didn't have to sit on our knees. And for Americans, that's rather difficult to be on your knees for half hour. Most Americans cannot do it because we didn't grow up that way. But here we have the opportunity to do the traditional green tea that you whisk. And then another one, if you weren't that interested, there's the other, just the plain green tea. But I chose the one where you had to brew it 3 times, and then you got to eat the leaves at the end. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I want to do that. So I did it actually both times, last year and this year. And the ladies were so sweet, and they gave you candies, and everyone got to choose the type of tea they wanted. So tea has to do with respect. And the tea ceremony there's a certain protocol that you do. You have with the tea bowl, and it's passed around, and you turn it and you clean it with the napkin that they give you. And there's a certain, you enjoy it. You don't just gulp it down. You sit there and enjoy it. So it really does have to do with respect. And the samurai they actually practiced the tea ceremony. They were the artists. They were poets. They did haiku. They were the scholars. It's amazing what they did. Writers. So the samurai were very well balanced people. And that's what I been learning is how balanced they were, because of course they were the great swordsmen practicing their swordsmanship every day. But then there was the right side where they were the poets, the scholars, the teachers, and did haiku. So I love learning about that because they weren't just hardened soldiers. They were also they cultivated that part of their personality. And as Westerners, that's what I want to do too, because I'm extremely right brained. I'm right brained very much, and on the left side, it just needs more attention. Where my right side, I have plenty of ideas, and that's why I majored in art when I was in college, because I love creation. I love art. But then I also love the performing arts. I'm a speaker, I'm a storyteller, and that's what I love to do. So we'll go to the next slide. I just wanted to give you more details about it. So I'd love to have you join us in 2025. And by doing so, you will learn more about the samurai cultures, because I have been there. That was probably my 14th trip that I've been to Japan. And each time I go, I learn something new. And by attending and actually being in Japan, you can hear the sounds, you can smell their cuisine, you can smell it from restaurants, because there's so many restaurants in Japan, especially in Kyoto. They don't entertain in their homes much because their homes are pretty small. So they entertain at a restaurant. You hear the sounds, and you experience their hospitality, you experience their culture, the way that they conduct themselves. You will not see litter on the streets. You don't see that very often. And you won't see garbage cans very often either, because people, they really teach responsibility. And it starts at a very young age. The children, you will see the children literally on public transportation, as well as walking around either by themselves or with a friend without adult supervision. So it's really, it just kind of, when you're there, is you feel like you're in a world that doesn't exist anymore, which it doesn't in many parts of the world, because they're very kind. They're so honest. There's no tipping. If you give them money, they will count it back to you and show you. And most Japanese are very honest, as what was demonstrated in the tsunami, and then also the last disaster they had on January 1st last year. That was, towns were devastated. And some of the towns that we visited were literally down to the ground, and they don't know when or how they're going to rebuild that. It's just, they don't know yet. But we were able to enjoy it once, many years ago. So I just encourage you, if it's one thing, it's great to learn about the samurai culture, watch the movies, hear lectures, and hear about it, or study it on your own, or join us in studying it. Or you can go to Japan and experience and just realize why it is a wonderful place to be. It's my happy place. I'm so happy when I'm in Japan, and I walk a lot. I'm a baby boomer, but my average was about 14,000 steps a day. And I love it because it's so interesting and beautiful in Japan. So you don't have to go to Japan, but I know I'm saying that it will enhance your experience and your understanding of samurai culture and Japanese culture, and especially just being amongst the people. And the first time I went, I was so at home. I just loved it, and that was many, many years ago. And I I loved it. Just everything about it was wonderful. The food, the hospitality, the how clean it was, and how honest the people were. I thank you so much for watching this, whether you're live or you're watching the replay. The information's the same, but you can always email with questions. We will send that out to you, but you could also watch it on Facebook Live and on Facebook Replay. And it'll be up there, because I love Japan. I want to share as to many people why it is a great place, because that which I once scorned, I now embrace. And I forgot to mention to you about I don't know about the stylized swords and the katabami hearts. They look like hearts, but they're actually part of the katabami plant. And because of the swords, it is a samurai kamon or crest from feudal Japan. So that is it, my friends. Thank you so much for joining. And please connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn, however you want to do it. And the last one, and you want to go back to that last one, we took that picture because you don't, part of the Japanese culture is you don't give up. My father used to say, I'm Sagawa. He says, Sagawas don't quit. And that meant we just kept doing it and finishing it until we came to the end. So the next one is a way to contact me. The next slide, Lori at Lori Whaley, and my website, and my book, in my Facebook community, and also on LinkedIn. I'm becoming more active on LinkedIn as well as Facebook. So that is it for now. I just want to say mata ne, goodbye. I don't say sayonara because sayonara is more a long time. And I hope to see you and interact with you. So I'll say mata ne. Have a wonderful weekend.